A little context to begin with. 2 weeks ago I released a light blue dial version of this list, so if lighter tones are your thing, I've got you covered. Deep blue has more serious connotations to it, is naturally more businesslike on a watch dial, and represents knowledge, power and integrity. I have to say I'm personally a fan of it because it reminds me of the ocean, something I feel a real affinity to. Small wonder then that it's one of the most popular dial colours, and there are countless watch ranges out there that feature 3 colours only: white, black and deep blue. It's seen by watch brands as a very safe colour to release, and if we apply Occam's razor, that logically has to mean it sells very well indeed. This magnitude of watches is one of the main reasons I wanted to split blue up into 2 separate lists, because there are just so many deep blue options that refining down to a top 10 is actually very difficult. The rule set that I'm going to follow is the same as the last video, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much here by repeating it. What I will say though is that for the sake of variety, I won't be re-featuring any models that appeared on that list. For example, there's a very nice deep blue PRX, but I'll avoid that here as the light blue variant featured in the other video. With all that said, let's get into this. The price I'm quoting for this model is from the San Martin website with a discount code applied. I think it may well be possible to get hold of this watch for closer to $200 by shopping around, but those websites fluctuate their prices so often it's going to be hit and miss. I've owned 2 San Martin watches at this point, and both have been absolutely ridiculous in terms of value for money, with finishing and dials that easily exceed expectations. The SN0129C3 is actually a new model, but long-term viewers will know I'm like a moth to a flame when it comes to a textured dial. And not only that, but I think this is a really intoxicating shade of blue to pair with it. At the time of writing, this model was available on Joma Shop for 70% off recommended retail price. Now, it's too big for me, but I recognise there is a healthy market for big chunky dive watches like this 44mm diver that is rated to deal with 300 meters of water resistance. While the dark blue matte dial might not be the most special on the list, if you take into account the rest of the watch, it's a real looker. Those angled edges and rubberized crown are a clear sign this is a rugged piece made for real work. I know not everyone will be a fan of a quartz movement, but a Swiss-made GMT of any kind for this price that doesn't say Swatch on the dial is absolutely insane value for money, and I can only apologise if they're sold out by the time this video releases. This may be a controversial inclusion on the list, as if you look up Undone as a brand, it isn't hard to stumble across mixed reviews and experiences. The model itself is not without its flaws either. For example, I don't really understand why a 100-meter rated diver needs to be 15mm thick, even if that does include the crystal. However, despite these concerns, I'm featuring this watch on the list because ultimately we're focusing on dials here, and while this has clearly taken some Speedmaster 300 inspiration in terms of the design, the actual gradient dial, texture and coloration that they've selected here is fantastic, especially on a watch available at this price point. I am unashamedly a big fan of enamel dials. The Fume offering from Anordain and some of the work on the Presage models have had me hankering to get one recently. I've spoken about the 2 Erebus ranges before and I'm a big fan, but the level of improvement between the Origin and the Ascent was so remarkable I want to keep my powder dry to see what the 3rd offering is before I commit to a purchase. Enamel dials are usually reserved for way more expensive timepieces than this. I often get asked why I haven't featured an Erebus model on certain lists. The answer there is really for the sake of variety. They tick so many boxes because they offer so many dial variations, so I need to pick and choose where I have them in videos. But I feel it's fully deserving of a place here with an enamel dial at this low price point. I think the Baltic Aquascaphe Blue Gilt might go down as the watch that I've spoken about the most on the channel, that I could actually afford but have never actually owned. And when I look at footage and images of this model, I always question myself on that. It just looks so good. That gilt finishing is really something else and makes the whole piece comes to life. Admittedly, you could get a watch with similar specifications to this for less, but it won't look anywhere near as good as this does. This is one of the best watches that I actually own, and easily the best in terms of cost to quality of dial ratio. That's a very specific way to measure the quality of a watch, but if you did apply that metric, I honestly don't know if any other watch to ever exist would actually measure up to this. Not only is it an amazing dial, but for me personally, I get to have fun trying to get the best possible shots of it with a macro lens. As far as blue dials go, this is going to be both figuratively and quite literally unique in any collection, as every dial is different. A couple of words of caution though, this is a JDM model, so if you buy one, look out for the location of the seller, as you might be walking into some import tax. The strap is also very small, so just be aware that you may need to replace it if you have a larger wrist. Convergent evolution is when animals from different species evolve the same solution to the same problem. It's why marine mammals and fish are almost all torpedo-shaped. That's just the best way to move through the water. It's also why there is a ring of truth to the meme about everything eventually evolving into a crab. Well, in horological terms, the Rolex Submariner is the crab. If we reach for Occam's razor once more, it stands to reason that the only reason people keep making homages to it is they sell. Far be it for me to try and stem that tide, so I'm including the Blu-ray from Squale, as I think it's the best Blue Dial Submariner homage you're going to get with Swiss made on the dial for well under the stated budget of this video. It doesn't get much more deep blue than a watch featuring those exact words in its name. I would own this watch if I had a bigger wrist. The dimensions are the only thing holding me back, because I know it would look like the watch is wearing me rather than the other way around. The dial here is not only aesthetically beautiful, but thematically appropriate. If I ever get the opportunity to learn to dive, then there's a real strong case for getting one of these to wear over the top of a wetsuit. But at nearly 44mm in diameter, I couldn't wear it otherwise. A shame. I'd be first in line if they ever release a smaller model. Unfortunately, the RE BXL 0004L is well north of the budget. But I'm going to shoehorn it in here because I think the dial is reminiscent of the Shunbun, but in blue, which if you follow the channel, you'll know is very high praise from me. Instead, we're focusing on its little brother, the RE AU 0403L, which is admittedly still pricier fare than you might expect from regular Orient models. But the Orient Star brand is designed to be a step up, and there are a few obvious indicators of that with this model. You're getting an in-house F6 N43 automatic movement, which boasts a power reserve indicator, which has a matte finish beneath it, contrasting against the subtle blue sunburst of the rest of the dial. I think it's a really well finished timepiece, deserving of a place on this list. I'm pushing the budget to its absolute extreme with the Ocean Crawler Core Diver. Earlier on in the video, I was questioning why the Undone Diver needed to be 15mm thick. Well, the Core Diver is 15.6mm thick, but unlike its cheaper counterpart, this is a serious piece of diving kit. This model is depth rated to 600 meters, has 4mm thick sapphire crystal to help cope with that, a helium escape valve, C3 Luminova, a Sellita SW201 movement, and a bronze bezel and crown. None of that is actually why it features here though. I'm just a big fan of the dial. In particular, and it might seem inconsequential, but I really love the print work and applied logo. I think these small details really elevate the whole piece. If you want one of these though, you need to act fast, as they only made 100. So there we have it, what I consider to be the 10 best deep blue dials that money can buy under $1,000. As ever, I'm keen to hear from you with your thoughts on the list, but I will say that when I put these together, I do try and get watches across a range of price points within that $1,000 bracket, and so I hope that goes some way to explaining some of the choices I make. Otherwise, every list runs the risk of being an exercise in just hunting for deals on models that scrape in just under budget. That aside, let me know your thoughts in the comments. What would you keep on here? What would you swap out? And do you have any experience with these models you want to share? I will just finish by saying that, perhaps more so than any other list video I've ever made, there are so many watches that could quite easily feature here, and so many different intangible reasons as to why they haven't. I just wanted to round out with a few honourable mentions. The Laurier Neptune Mark III, the older version of the Christopher Ward C60 Blue, the Halios Fairwind, the Aragon Sea Charger, and even some that I regret not adding into the light blue version of the video, like the Zelos Nova Teal. A big problem with a lot of these watches, and one reason why they don't feature, is quite simply that some of them are near impossible to actually buy. Ultimately though, you've got to draw a line somewhere, and I don't think anyone minds being sport for choice when it comes to watches. As ever, thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed the video or found it informative, consider dropping it a like, and subscribing if you want to see more content like this.